What's going on, guys? Welcome back to TheTranq. Today I'm going to be doing a video I've been excited to bring to you guys. I'm going to be showing you guys my shop. I've been working on getting it the way I wanted it for a long while now, and I'm in a state where I'm really happy with it. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you everything I got, leave links and information in the description, so let's go ahead and do it. Okay, so first spot I should probably start in the shop is the place I spend the majority of my time, and this is the workbench. Now, I built this last fall going into winter because I started doing a lot more hand tool work, and I really needed a sturdy woodworking bench to do that on. So this is modeled after the Rob Cosman bench. It's not his plan, but I kind of use the similar dimensions and style of the build. I use the same tail vise he uses. This is the Schoberg adjustable vise. Nice thing about this is that it runs on two rectangular prisms here for the rack, and so it really has less racking than your common screw vise. So this is really great. It's great for work holding. Let's say I've got to do something with this small piece of wood. I can pop up my dog right here. I can bring the vise in, add another dog right here. Alright, and I can clamp that down, and now I've got this securely held in the bench. I can come through and do some planing or whatever I need to do. And so this has been working really great for having good work holding options. Along with that, of course, you can just clamp boards on their edge, so this doubles as a front vise and a tail vise, and you can come through and just like that you can plane your work. And so I absolutely love having a good work holding option. It has made the task so much easier, doing a lot of dovetails, things like that. So that's basically it. Now I'm going to show you how I quickly transform this into my sharpening station. So if we come around to the other end here, just like Rob's bench, I've got this IKEA lamp here, and you can just pivot this and have it wherever you need light, and it's a really great option. I'm just going to show you quickly how I transform this into my sharpening station, because that's something I'm doing all the time. So what I do is I have this piece of sacrificial 3/4 inch MDF. I just set that here. I put my two holdfasts here. Normally I'd give them a mallet, but I don't have my hammer with me, but that'll keep this in place. Now in this corner here is where I just keep my sharpening supplies, and so I've got that on this little drawer here. Keep some rags, of course, and here I keep my whetstones. So I'll bring this over to the bench, and then likewise I've got a couple of my other stones down here, and I'll just bring them over. And so here I've just transformed the end of my bench into my sharpening station. I've got the Trend 1000 grit stone. This is the diamond stone used for lapping your water stones, as well as honing the undersides of a blade initially to flatten them. And I go up to the Shapton 16,000 grit glass stone, and this just leaves you with an unbelievably sharp blade that can, you can plane through end grain, and it's just pretty incredible. So this is how I set up my sharpening, and it's pretty easy to do. It took like a minute to set up there, and then I can just take it and put it back when I'm done. Okay, so immediately next to the workbench here, I've got my dust collection, or at least part of my dust collection, and some of my important tools here. This is a Harbor Freight tool cart, and I actually love this. It's only a couple $100s, and it works really great. So if we come in and take a look here, immediately when you open it up, basically what I've got is all my layout tools and some of my more precise tools that I want to have a safe spot. I actually do have these all sitting in Kaizen foam, so they all have their specific areas cut out for them so that I know right where things go. I'm really big on organization. I think that a clean shop allows you to be more efficient and do nicer work. So literally everything in here has its own area cut out. So this has various, marking knives, rules, dividers, and just various things that I'm always using, and I keep them right here. Up on here I keep a little whiteboard. This is on a magnet, so I can take it off and write on it quick. And this is where I write down upcoming projects that I want to work on, as well as other notes I need to do. I also keep a date on when I go through and wax with paste wax some of the various machinery in the shop to avoid rust, and I like to stay up to date on that. You can see it's been 2 months, so it's probably time to do that. Additionally, I've got a few magnets here from some of the companies I work with on the channel. Wall Control, you'll see tons of their products throughout my shop. I really love their pegboard, and also Isotunes audio. I use them every day in the shop, and they support the channel, and so I keep them right here. And I'll just give a quick overview. I'm of course not going to show every single tool, but in this first drawer here, I do have just a majority of pliers. These Nightbex pliers are what I'm constantly grabbing. I think they're the best pliers you can get. Punches, utility knives, things like that. This next drawer down is empty, and you'll see what was in here. I actually just moved it for the video. This is probably the most important drawer. So this here has all my chisels. I've got a full set of Japanese bench chisels here. They're all polished on both the bevel and the underside to 16,000. And these are razor sharp, and I keep them in that condition, and they work great for all the various hand tool work I do. I also have the Cat's Moses saw guide and a 3D printed saw guide here that I often use with my Japanese saw. And so these are here right where I can grab them and use on the bench. And the bottom drawer is a little bit more of a catch-all. I've got all my Forstner bits here. It's really great to have a full set of Forstner bits. I use them all the time. I've got a set of mortising chisels that I don't do a ton with yet, so I keep them here for now. A pair of winding sticks, and then just some other various hardware and things that just end up in here. So immediately next to there, and also within range of hands grasp from the workbench, is my Festool dust extractor. So what I've got here is the CT MIDI. And so this is a Bluetooth capable system, and it's got good gallon size as far as how much dust it can hold. I've also gone ahead and added the CT Cyclone because I dust up lots of larger feathers and things from when I'm hand planing and chiseling. I don't want those to all go into the dust bag. I want them to get separated here. And then on top I've also got one of the Sys MFTs. It just gives me a nice little work surface to set things when I'm working. It's always great to have a little extra space. And so the great thing is what I can do is when I need to clean up at the shop, say I just did some hand planing, I can just grab the hose. I've got the Bluetooth button here, click this. So you can see I can just come through and suck up all those feathers and larger debris and not have to worry about it because I know it's going to go in the separator. And this will reach the whole area over here, and so I can clean up things and keep it nice and tidy. Okay, so directly across from the bench here in this corner, if you watch some of my recent videos, you probably saw my build video for this, but this is my lathe stand. So on here I've got the Nova Comet 2 lathe. I got into turning this winter, and it's more of a secondary for me in woodworking, but I've been really enjoying it, and I want to do a lot more turning, especially on those hot nights where I don't want to do other types of woodworking. So it's gotten a lot of use, and it's going to get a whole lot more, but so far I've been enjoying the lathe. Inside this lathe stand, since I designed it, I've got it perfectly customized for my needs. On the top here I've got some of my smaller turning tools, some carbide tools, as well as some Sorby traditional tools, and I keep those in here, and they all have a spot within quick grasp. In the next drawer here I keep all my supplies for turning pens. It's a really fun thing to turn pens. They make great gifts, and so I just keep everything relating to that in this drawer. This is a bit more of a junk drawer, but it's all related to the lathe. A lot of it is chuck accessories and chuck add-ons, as well as some turning blanks and things like that. I got some cold jaws in here. So just everything for turning is contained within this cabinet. Down here I just keep a bunch of larger turning blanks. Here you can see some huge hunks of cherry that'll make some nice little boxes, as well as this piece of walnut which I poured blue epoxy in and will be turning a vase out of in the near future. And in the very bottom drawer I just have two things. I've got some Mylands polish, and I've got my pen tray. You probably saw this in a recent video. If not, I'll leave a link. But in this tray I've got all my pen components for making pen organized. This gives them a safe spot and keeps everything where I need it, so I don't get things mixed around. And so I just keep everything in here, and it's great for keeping my pen supplies. Adjacent to those drawers, I've got two of these larger drawers where I can keep some of my larger turning tools. I 3D print custom hooks here to keep them nice and in place. You can hear them. You can hear that click right into place. And so I got two drawers like that. I don't have enough tools to fill them, but I'll have plenty of storage for when I do have more. Directly above the lathe here, I've just got my rigid speaker, which I like to turn on now and then if I'm not using my isotunes. I've also got a rigid fan here. When it gets hot in the shop, it's nice to turn that on. Last thing of note is I keep a little flashlight here, and I can rotate this, turn it on, and I use this to provide light to the lathe when I'm turning. For instance, if I'm hollowing out a box or something like that, this gives me direct light on it, and so I like to keep this handy. Okay, and then directly behind the workbench and the lathe is, well, kind of another workbench. It's the first workbench I built, but it's not a traditional woodworking bench. But I do a lot of work up here. So there's a lot going on here, so we'll break it up by section, and we'll start in the corner. I've got wall control pegboard everywhere, and on here I've got my Japanese saw. This is a pull saw, of course, and it does both rips and cross cuts. I've also got my Western, just, you know, your classic Stanley saw there. And I hang up some of my longer rules on the rack here to keep them, you know, safe from getting damaged. I also have a set of thread checkers. I do a lot of stuff with machine screws, and so it's good to be able to identify them, and you'll see the machine screws in their organization later. Got an American flag up here, and that is directly behind that. I've got my rag storage here. This was inspired by Shop Nation, one of his builds. I really love his channel. But in here I've just got tons of rags. I can just grab them when I need them. I got paper towels and some microfiber cloths, and I can just grab these as I need them. It's great to have them at close reach. Looking at the bench here, I've got a small organizer. This has some miscellaneous hardware. I've got more particular hardware organized in other places, but this has, you know, odds and ends, and I think it's good for everyone to have this in the shop. I also just keep my bottle of Honrite. Honrite is a water additive that prevents rust. I use this for all my sharpening, and that actually just always sits right there. Okay, as far as the pegboard here, again, it's all wall control metal pegboard, which I love. Here I've got a series of bins. I've got kind of miscellaneous things in here, flashlights, safety glasses, some of my air compressor tools and accessories. I've got my brad nailer hanging up here, and I've got a couple of saws hanging up there. Up here I've got this little shelf, and here I keep things that are sort of a work in progress. Right now I'm working on some of the wood hinges that Rob Cosman does, and so we can see here this was a test joint I was just doing, and so you can see how it blends in, and yet this piece is actually a full hinge. So I've been working on that. This was my first go at it, so I just like to save things like this. I've also been doing a lot of practice dovetails. And so I've been cutting these by hand, and the good ones that come out I like to set up here. So these are all hand cut dovetails, and I'm going to be doing some dovetail boxes here, but I'm working on improving my technique currently. I've got my drill station right here. I run mainly DeWalt as far as cordless tools, and so I've got my drills here, and I got them hanging up with a charger here, and you just charge them on the fly. Otherwise, it's pretty simple. I've got a few of my dad's old saws up here. He doesn't do woodworking, but he does have some saws, and so I keep them hung up there. I've got my New Concepts coping saw. This is one of my favorite tools, especially for all my dovetail work. There's no coping saw like it. It's totally worth the money to get the high tension on the blade, and I really love that investment. I also keep my dovetail saw right here. You can see I made a cherry holster for it to keep it protected when I'm not using it. So that can just slide in the sheath, and I cut dovetails with this. I cut a lot of dovetails, and so I keep this close at hand. Finally, on the other side of the workbench here, it's actually a permanent home for it at the moment. I inherited one of these Sorby sharpeners from a woodworker, an older woodworker I knew, and so he gave me this for 50 bucks, which was an incredible deal. It works fine, and so it works spectacular for sharpening my turning tools, and so I keep that here, and I'm still working on getting the hang of using it. But right now this is kind of the only spot for it, so I keep it there. Okay, so if we look under the wall-mounted bench here, a couple things to note. I do have the charging station down here, so I've got a huge plug here, and I've got all my various cordless chargers on this little shelf I made. Finally, directly below that's an air compressor. This is just a pancake compressor, but I do have one of these retractable hose reels, so what I can do is just grab the hose when I need it. It's built into the cart there, so it stays in place. I can just reel out the hose when I need it, and then I can just pull it and retract that back in, and it keeps the tidying out of the way, and it actually works out really well. Okay, so I didn't do a video on this project, but I just built this cabinet here, and what I really needed was a spot to keep all my just various things better organized instead of sitting out on all the work surfaces. So I built this cabinet. It's got all full extension drawer slides and nice big drawers. You can see some of them are empty because I don't even have stuff for them, which is really great. But a few drawers of note. This is my hardware drawer. I keep all my hardware organized in these 3D printed boxes. These were again inspired by a combination of Shop Nation and Alexander Chappell. And so these are actually all fitted into a grid system, and so every single box fits into this grid and it keeps them from sliding around. And I keep all my hardware organized with labels so I know exactly what it is. I also keep miscellaneous hardware from jigs and things that in a labeled bag so that I actually have the parts if I need it, and it's a great way to keep my hardware organized. This next drawer is a bit of a junk drawer, just miscellaneous sharpening things and things that don't have a spot. This drawer here is all my cabinet making supplies, so I've got a lot of the Rockler 90-degree jigs, I've got my Craig screws, edge banding, everything like that for making cabinets. I just keep in this drawer. In this next drawer I've got a bag with all my DeWalt batteries. These are all fully charged so I can just grab a battery when I need it. I keep this container here which has shim stock from 1 thou up to 5 thou stock, and I use that for obviously dialing in machinery and set up things like that. I also have my Lee Valley rabbiting plane in here, and this is a relatively new addition for me to the shop. It's a really beautiful plane. And it's obviously used for cutting rabbits. I use this when I'm cutting dovetails, and I have it dialed in perfectly, and I keep that down here and grab it when I need it. Again, another drawer with some miscellaneous junk. And on the very bottom here, I just keep some of my excess dust collection adapters and things like that, and again, just kind of a junk drawer. Okay, so on the back side of the tool cart here, I've got a couple stacks of Festool sustainers. I like to use the sustainers for organization because they're built well and they keep my things protected, and again, I like things organized. I've got some of the Sortainer drawers up here. They have miscellaneous things, some dowels, some tools for the router table, and so this just has miscellaneous things in it. Below that, I've got some sustainers which have some of my lathe accessories, my DeWalt palm router accessories, and my Bosch fixed base router I keep in here. I've also got one of the Sys tool boxes here, and so in here I actually keep a few different things. I keep some hardware in here. Again, all the hardware is organized with labels so I know exactly what it is. I keep some of my electronics stuff here on the flip side as well, and then directly below I've got some of my most used finishes, and I like to keep them down here so I can quickly grab them and use them when I need them. Also here I've got my Makita track saw, and that comes in its own sustainer, and so I keep that here. The track saw is an awesome addition to the shop and I really love it. Next up is the router table. Now this doesn't have a dedicated home. It's on casters. I roll it around where I need to put it. But anyway, this is a combination. So this is the Rockler router table top and fence. I've got an Infinity Cutting Tools plate here because I've got the Triton 3 horsepower router in this thing. I've also got the custom cabinets that I built for this router table. I did a whole video on this. But this allows me to keep all my router table accessories nice and here and contained. So everything in these drawers is specifically for the router, which works really well. I've also got these awesome upper drawers that I can just pull out and grab these trays out. And within these trays I keep all my various router bits. So it's super easy to grab these and figure out what bit I need and swap them in and out. Bit changes on the table are super simple, and that's really great. So with the Triton router, it comes with a built-in lift system built into the router, so you don't have to add a $200 or $300 aftermarket lift to get above the table adjustment. It comes with this rod here, and this just inserts into the plate here until you engage the mechanism. You just got to feel around for it, and there it is. Now it's in place, and now you can see here I can do above the table adjustments on the router bit, and this is a super convenient thing to have on a router table. And so you can bring this all the way up and swap out your router bits, and I really love that. It's also got the JESM quick release plates here, so I can get an insert plate that perfectly matches the corresponding bit that I'm using. Okay, so moving on to the side of the garage here, first thing you're going to see is this lumber rack. Now this lumber rack is inspired initially by Steve Ramsey's lumber rack, although I actually drew up my own dimensions and design for it because I like to have my own plans for things. So this whole cart is on casters. I can quickly roll this out, and so you'll see on the front I keep a lot of my hardwoods. On the back here is where I keep the majority of my sheet goods. This can hold up to like maybe, I mean, you can pretty much fit a full 4x8 on here. It'll be tall, but you can fit them. So I got sheet goods on the back. Inside you've got all these different cabinets here, and I keep cutoffs, and there's just cutoffs of every kind in here. But one cool thing I do on mine is on this very top one, most people don't have a good way of storing dowels and things like that. What I do is I actually save these tubes that I get when I purchase various items. And so this whole top row has tubes, and in these tubes are all my dowels. And so I can just pick up a tube and find the dowel or rod that I need without having them all flailing all over the place. And this works super well for organizing this if you're looking for a good way to organize your dowels. Okay, immediately next to the lumber rack, I've got my planer. This is the DeWalt lunchbox style planer. It's a 12-inch planer, and I've been super happy with it. I put it through its paces, and it's worked extremely well. It's just got straight knives in there, but it's still a great planer, especially for the price. I have this in a cabinet I built. This cabinet just has a swinging door here, and inside I just have a bunch of adjustable shelving here so I can keep whatever I need. Nothing too much of note in here. I keep some of my consumables, sandpapers and things in this bag to keep them clean. I've also got this toolbox here, and I keep all my leather working supplies in here. I do a decent amount of leather working, and so I built this little crate for those. I've also got this. This is usually sitting on top of the planer. This is the DeWalt cordless palm router, and this is by far, in my opinion, the best palm router on the market. I've got a 6 amp hour battery in here, and it's a real tank. I love this router. Next to the planer, I've got my drill press station. This is the area in the shop most due for an upgrade. You can see that the whole stand actually is a little bit more wobbly and crooked than I'd like. This is one of the first stands I built, so it's been here a long time. But I'm running the Wen drill press here. This is only like a $150 drill press, and I have to say I've used this for years, and I can highly recommend it if you're just looking for a small benchtop drill press. It's got minimal run out, and I've been very impressed with it for the price. On the back side, I've got a bench grinder. This was from one of my uncles. I don't use it too much, but I do keep it back here, and I'm sure when I have a need for it, it's nice to have. Behind the drill press, I've got this couple different shelving things I made. First, this keeps a lot of finishes and various liquids that I use in the shop. Everything from mineral spirits, wood glue, to flocker supplies, pitch and resin remover. I've also keep some finishing supplies and all my supplies for glue ups on the lower shelves, and I just have those here because they're easy to grab and I use them all the time. While we're on the theme of the wall, another cool project I did is this sandpaper storage station. I've got a video on this, and I'm super pleased with how it came out. You can keep your 8.5 by 11 sheets of sandpaper in this divider here. There's a spot right here specifically designed for your 5-inch sanding pads, so you can keep them organized by grit. And on the right side is an area where you can keep your various sanding blocks. Again, have them organized, and it works super well. Below that, I've got one of the Rockler clamp racks. I really like these Rockler clamp racks because they hold the specific clamps very well and keep them, off the ground. So this is for F-style clamps. I got a lot of the Bessie clamps. I've also got one for all the quick release trigger clamps, and for that I've got a lot of the DeWalt and some of the Urban trigger clamps. Beneath those things on the wall, I've got my jointer. I do keep this cloth on it because this one is really prone to rusting, and I of course don't want it to rust. This is the Jet 6-inch jointer. It's got straight knives on it. I actually got this for $300 at a tool sale, and it had barely been used, so I got this on a real steal. I don't use it a ton, to be honest. I use my planer a lot more often, but it's a great tool to have. I've got it on a mobile base here, and I can move it out when I need it. Otherwise, it stays put here, and I like, again, just keep this on here to contain the rust. Okay, finally in the corner here, we've got my primary dust collection, and for that I've got one of the Dust Right. This is the 1250 CFM dust collector. I really love this because it hangs on the wall. It doesn't take up floor space. It's super powerful. I've got that running directly to a cyclone here, so this is a 30-gallon drum with cyclone adapters so that all the big chips and things get filtered out into this before heading to the dust bag. And I've got some of the Rockler expandable hose here and quick release handle, and I use this for attaching to all my various power tools. Okay, next we've got my table saw station, and this is kind of what started it all. The table saw is the very first tool I got for woodworking, and pretty much the first week I got it, I built this cart for it. And the reason it's still here today is because it's become fitted to be so perfect for what I do, and it works really well. I found no need to make a new one. So taking a look here, I've got the DeWalt table saw here. This is the job site saw. And it's been a great saw. It's served me a long time, and I think there's not a better saw to get started with woodworking. I do have zero clearance inserts here that I make with the router, and that allows me to do more accurate work. I've got an outfeed here, and this is just slightly below the height of the table saw, so my work can pull through and be stable on this outfeed table. Below that, I've got just a simple shelf here that keeps some of my most used things. I've got a set of the micro jig push blocks here, the grippers. I've also got some various drill bits, countersink bits, and drivers that I keep here because I'm always using those. As I was saying, for this being custom to my needs, one of my favorite things, right on the bottom here, I've got this shelf, and on that I've got my small part crosscut sled that I made. So I can just pull this out here, set this up on the table saw, and right there I've got a crosscut saw. It took me 5 seconds to do, and when I'm done using it, I can just take it and slide it right back underneath, and that works super great. Now for times where I'm doing larger crosscuts, what I do is I just bring the fence out all the way here, and then you can see here on the side of the workbench, I've got my primary crosscut sled. I've got that tethered in place. I can just grab it, set it up, and now I've got my full-size crosscut sled ready to go. And when I'm done using it, just like before, I can put it back on the side, notch it in place, and there we go. Within 10 seconds, you've got your crosscut sled put back. Okay, so for again, when I'm ready to use the table saw, I just go ahead and grab my quick attach handle, and I just plug it into that port here. The 1250 CFM dust collector comes with a remote control, so I can click it here. And you could probably hear that power on, so I can just easily turn on the dust collector from my apron whenever I need it, which is super convenient. I've gotten an additional port here on the side, and so when I'm going to do any hand sanding with my orbital sander, I take the handle, plug it into this port right here, and then basically what I've got here is my hosing attached to a clip, and I can just pull out my sander, and you can see that I've got this hooked up to dust collection, and again, it just takes 2 seconds to switch over the dust collection and go to sanding. And again, when I'm done using it, I can just unlock the casters here, and the whole thing will just roll. And so every night I just roll this whole thing into the garage, and that's where it goes, and I pull it back out again in the morning when I'm ready to go, and it works super well. I am excited because I'm about to purchase a saw stop contractor saw, and so that's going to actually be replacing this, and I'm super excited to get my hands on that. Okay guys, so that's going to do it for this shop tour. I hope I kept this brief enough. There's a lot to show. There's a lot I've done in the shop. I'm super excited to bring more projects in the future, so if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and check out my other videos. If you enjoyed this, give the video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.